Shaggers are all giving me this story independently. Now, the first interview I did was a guy named JoJo Putnam. JoJo was not in the first generation Hall of Fame. And I met him in Columbia before I came down to the beach. JoJo was a professional pool player. And the first thing he does is he takes a switchblade knife and comes up and puts it at my neck and says, "You will believe what I tell you." Which got my attention, and I did believe him from that point on. This is a quote that he gave me. And you can read it, but he was comparing himself to the beat generation and the people who were at the beach and doing the shag at the time. And he said they encompassed all walks of life, from bank presidents to bank robbers. Well, he wasn't far from right, because the first guy I met was Harry Driver, who was, in fact, described himself as a professional safecracker. And Harry owned a big safe company. And he, at the time, was, all of these guys made a lot of money in what they did. But Harry was the guy that invented what's considered the smooth pivot of the shag. And this is a photo of Harry in his days on the beach. These guys gave me some pictures, and I'm showing them really most of these for the first time. This is Harry. He was a lifeguard at the beach, and worked. He went to Charlie's place at night. Charlie invited him in, called him Little Dancing Harry. This is Harry getting a cigarette lit somewhere. I'm not sure exactly what's going on, but it's... Now, this is Harry with Bobby Wren, Count Basie, and Harry Driver. He knew these performers, and Count Basie, he was a buddy-buddy with Count Basie, and here they are. I'm not sure where this was made, but Count Basie did play at Charlie's Club, and this was in that period. Now, this is Harry dancing with the woman that he became well known to dance with, and she was one of the great beach music people, and also a member of the First Generation Hall of Fame, Clarice Revis. And we'll get to her in a minute. But this is the two of them dancing in 1948. Again, it's in a club, I'm not sure where. This is Harry when I met him in 1994. Now, he died in 1998, and I think he was in an accident. This is him dancing in 94. Here's him and Clarice again. I'll just go through these. This is at Fat Harold's on the dance floor. Now, a good friend of Harry, and also one of the most interesting people in this whole thing, was Big George Lineberry. Big George had a unique role in the music because he would take, he serviced the jukeboxes on Myrtle Beach. And he would take music from the black clubs and put it on the white jukeboxes. And when he wasn't supposed to do that, he was given playlists. And what he did when he did this, he inaugurated each of these little escapades of his with a dance. And it got to the point that parents would pay Big George to dance with their daughters to give them self-esteem. I mean, it was really hilarious. But George went on and just basically programmed the music that people heard at the beach. And this is, the name beach music came because of George Lineberry's efforts. George also, this is another picture of George. George was a guy that he invented what is it? It was a hip roll.
Belly roll.
What's it called?
Jelly roll or belly roll?
Yeah, that's he is the guy credited with inventing that. And here he is dancing in 1994. And this is him in his hotel room. He was a funny guy. Before he died, he gave each of the first generation Shaggers a jukebox stocked with music from that era. Gave it as a gift. And because he ended up owning the largest jukebox company on the East Coast in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And he was a multimillionaire. And he stayed with the whole game of stocking jukeboxes his whole life. Now, we come back to Clarice Revis. She's fascinating. This woman was considered the queen of shag. And she was a very good-looking woman and a very great dancer. They called her a show dancer. And Harry was often jealous because women were supposed to have a subverted role in all of this, but not with Clarice, because she would show up men. And she became well known for this. This is her dancing. I don't know who this is with, but this is her in the Charlie's era dancing. And she danced at Charlie's place a lot. Charlie liked her. This is her on the couch. Now, this is a very famous picture. In the war, Clarice was clowning around with a friend, and this picture was taken in her bathroom through a door. She was naked, but she just happened to have the right things on to cover it all. And she started giving out these photos as pinups to soldiers that were in White Lake, which was in North Carolina. Now, the reason the dancers went to White Lake was a blackout they had on Myrtle Beach. You had to have the lights out, half of the headlights painted on your car. And when they would do a signal, you had to turn the lights off completely because it was considered an enemy ship or submarine off the coast. And so they would all go to White Lake, and she would give these pictures out there. And at White Lake, a lot of the dancers learned moves from the soldiers at Fort Bragg, who had come from all over the world. So White Lake became a real melting pot for the jitterbugs. Now, let's go back to these dancers. They all were pretty much coming from the pavilion. They were called jitterbugs. But this is in the beginning of World War II, and the big bands, which they were used to listening to, were being decimated. And black performers started replacing them. And they all got hung up on black performers. So you had people like Big George giving them the music. You had Charlie Fitzgerald inviting them to come in and mix with the dancers. You had White Lake and the war bringing a lot of soldiers through the area. And this mix by about, after the war years, from about 1946 to 50, was a critical time when what is known as the shag happened. So Clarice Revis was a really incredible person. This is her in 1994. Now, what I remember is she came in the door, she had osteoporosis, and she was in a wheelchair, had a walker, and couldn't get around very well at all until they asked her to dance. And then she threw all that stuff aside and got out on the floor. And look at this. This is her. I mean, the woman was incredible. She put on a show that you wouldn't believe. And then she went back, got back in her wheelchair, and rolled her out. But she was a really remarkable person. And here she's signing a thing outside. Now, Leon Williams, Rubber Legs. This is made at Robert's Pavilion. Leon worked there. He called bingo and did a lot of things. But in this case, the owner of Robert's Pavilion got him to dance when they needed to whip the crowd up. And he would get $25 savings bonds for doing it. This is one afternoon when he was asked to do that. It was at Robert's Pavilion that Charlie Fitzgerald came by and invited Leon and his friends to come to the club. It was about 1943. And that was a very pivotal moment. And Leon he was probably one of the most frequent people at the club. He actually would stay till sunrise and then go to church, to the black churches. And he said that it was at the black churches that he learned that you could dance to gospel music. And this was stuff that they were all discovering, but it was going on. Now, this is Leon in 94. On on the dance floor. He's no longer really rubber legs, but he's still quite good. This was an interview we did with him probably about 98. He died sometime after that, but he was really a very interesting guy. He was also a Golden Gloves boxer, and he told about how at that time you had to fight and dance, and he was one of the best of both. But he picked a fight with the wrong guy, a guy from Tabor City who was about 40 years old. He said he thought he could beat him. But what happened was, before the fight was over, he realized he was bleeding very badly, and the guy had cut him with a razor blade. Well, there were no doctors in Myrtle Beach at the time, so a friend took him to a veterinarian who didn't have any painkiller. So another friend of his had him hold his arm while they worked on this wound. He put alcohol on it, and he broke his 4 of his friend's fingers. He said it hurt so bad. But this was the life that he had. He was a boxer, and the dancers and the soldiers had a real falling out over women. And if you were a boxer and a dancer, you could be lethal. And Leon thought he was. And a lot of his stories were quite funny. Chicken Hicks. Chicken Hicks was the only guy in this group that made me pay him to talk to him. I had to pay him $200 and take him to breakfast one morning. But he was a funny guy. And his big thing was how the music had changed. He didn't like bubblegum beach, he called it, which was what the Embers and the people did with I Love Beach music and stuff like that. To him, beach music was down and dirty R&B, like it was in the 50s at Charlie's Club. And he was a very funny guy. He was one of the best dancers. Here he is in '94. He's on the floor. Now, this is before he's agreed to talk to me. He's teasing me about the money now. Now, this is after I gave him the $200 and after he had breakfast. He finally decided he'd smile and pose. But he was an interesting guy, and of course all of these people are now dead. But they all gave me the pieces of this story. Billy Jeffers was older than most. He went to Charlie's Club. He started in the 30s, and he danced, until the wee hours. Charlie was I'm getting something up there. I'm not sure what that was, but this is Billy in '94. He was, I would say, he's probably about 10 years older than most of the dancers that were at the club. Now, these are other people that really kind of helped along the way. Fat Harold Besant, who owned Fat Harold's Bar, really good guy, and he was part of the group of shaggers that did the white shag reunions here. Now, I will tell you, when I started this book, I got a lot of resistance from them, because they would say, well, why do you have to bring blacks into this? And I couldn't figure this, because it surprised me that they're dancing to black R&B music on the dance floor, but they're denying that blacks have anything to do with it. And we had a lot of dispute. Harold was right in the middle, and he said, this is just the way they are. I let them drink. So Harold, as long as everybody would drink, Harold was fine. But he made it easy for me to be there, and I have to thank him many times for that. Now, there was another side to George Lineberry, and that is a radio station called WLSC in Nashville. Now, before it became beach music, it was black music, and it was played over a 50,000 watt radio station that covered South Carolina. And Hoss Allen, John Richburg, Gene Nobles, these were the first people who played this music. And a guy named Randy at Randy's Record Mart would sell the music and ship it in porno packaging to people that ordered it. There was a radio station in Anderson that said we will we'll play no jungle music here. It was a racist term they had for black music. So I got a lot of help. Hoss Allen was still going when I was doing the book, and he was a wonderfully funny guy. He was still selling 100 baby chickens over the air. You know, they did that for years. And I swear, I said, Hoss, I don't understand who buys them. He said, I don't know, man, but we sell them, you know. This is another picture of Hoss at the radio station. And here he is interviewing some kid. Now, John Richburg was from South Carolina. And everybody thought he was black because he was actually a Shakespearean actor from New York. And he did the best sound of a black man anybody ever heard, and they all thought he was black over the radio station. But he was as white as he could be, but he managed a lot of black entertainers. He had cancer, and in the end, a lot of major performers who said they owed their career to him came and did a big benefit for him. So he's another one of those South Carolina people who has been kind of lost and forgotten in the scheme of things, but he had a huge impact on bringing black music to white kids. And he started a thing called the Under the Pillow Club. That's when the transistor radio came out. And it was interesting because before transistor radios, people had to listen to a big console radio in the living room, and that was with your mother and father because the family had to do that. Well, mom and dad